Can you evaluate the play of Juwan Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins to this point?
Yeah, I think both Juwan and DeAndre have higher standards and expectations of how they want to play. I have the utmost confidence in those guys, and I think they're both going to have huge years for us. But yeah, I think there's a few plays that they'd like to have back. There's no doubt about it. I thought we made a huge step, which is critical in our offense, in the perimeter blocking game. I thought those guys really took big steps, significant steps. If you guys go back and watch the tape, some really good examples of us blocking on the perimeter and playing physical. But yeah, I think both of those guys have higher standards and expectations of who they want to be. One of the things I'm going to talk to the team about today is, Juwan. What I love about him is his approach. In all of his free time, he's in the facility, stretching, on the jugs machine, getting extra lift, watching more film, constantly taking care of his body, hot tubs, cold tubs. And with that type of investment that you make, good things are going to happen. He's got great skills. We talk about, investing in your future, investing in your craft, investing in school. It's all about preparation. And Juwan constantly, from the coaching staff and from the players, is pointed out as a guy that does that as well as anybody. So, I got tremendous confidence that those guys are going to end up, we're going to look back at the end of the year and say, wow, what huge years these guys had. I'm very, very confident that it's going to happen.
Bob Saunders, Harrisburg Patriot News.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. James, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the linebacker play in general, and specifically what you've seen from Michael Parsons earlier this season.
Yeah, I think it's about where we thought it would be. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to evolve. We got a number of guys. We got experience there. We got experienced talent. We got young talent. I think the combination of Koa Farmer and Micah Parsons at the outside linebacker position, I think that's that's a nice 1-2 punch that we have there, and feel like those guys got a chance to play at a very, very high level for us. At middle linebacker, you got an interesting three-way, three-headed monster there with Jan, Ellis, and Jesse, and all three of them do good things. And we'll continue to see those guys get reps and opportunities. It was good to see Jesse, who didn't play in week 1 at the linebacker position, get some reps in week 2, and I think that will continue to evolve. And then at the other outside linebacker, Cam Brown, and I see Jarvis Miller taking some steps. And then we were impressed when Daylon got into the game. We thought he did some good things. So that group will continue to evolve and grow, and you'll see a lot of guys get an opportunity to make plays. And I think at some point this season, either someone will take the job and take control of it and say, it's mine because there is a gap. Or you'll see, a 2-headed or 3-headed monster continue to kind of evolve there and grow and get better week to week.
Derek Clark, School Spare Times Leader.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Derek. How are you?
I'm doing well. Given that Tommy's season hasn't been 100%, how much that affected, if at all, how you've used traits in the run game so far? Yeah,
it hasn't really affected us a whole lot. I think, game planning, I think probably, some of the quarterback run stuff we've limited, but as you guys know, we do so much of the RPO stuff that, he's still getting a decent amount of carries per game to keep people honest. That's who we are, that's who we will be. I think you guys see we have a lot of confidence in Sean Clifford as well, which obviously helps with that. And then, obviously, getting Tommy back, is going to open some other things up to us as well, and in the run and passing game, because as we've used him the last couple of years, we know he can factor in a lot of different roles and wear a lot of different hats, not only as a backup quarterback, but also as, getting 2 quarterbacks on the field at the same time. Use him as a running back, use him as a H-back, use him as a wide receiver. So that's exciting as well, because I do think it opens another aspect of our game plan.
Mark Goodrich on Tom Morning Call.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, sir. You mentioned it before.
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Good now?
Not really, but I'll just focus.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier this season, in preseason, about Jahan's natural feel for the game. How did you translate that to the field, and how close is he to being ready to play?
Really good. We could play Jahan right now. I don't think there's any doubt in that. You'll see Jahan play this year because we got the 4 games to play him. So at some point we see it factoring in. We had a lot of discussions this week about some guys that maybe we would use this week and get them a little bit of experience. So we'll see how that plays out. But there's a lot of confidence in Jahan and what he brings to the table. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
So your passing game the first couple of weeks, in terms of numbers like completion percentage, yards per attempt, stuff like that, I'm guessing that it's not what you would want it to be. And you touched on that a little bit with wide receivers, but in general, how do you think you can get a little more efficient in the passing game?
Yeah, I think I don't know if that's really, when you think you had 2 games in one game significantly in rain the entire game, I think we threw for a good amount of yards and a good amount of touchdowns, and we held our opponent to 55 yards. And to think that the rain it wasn't just our defense that affected them, it was the rain as well. So I think under the circumstances, I feel really good about where we're at.
There have been many instances the past few years of your team having a big second half and overcoming any issues that you might have had in the first half. What are the keys for you to being consistently good as a program and making halftime adjustments?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I would make the argument really we got to do a better job of starting out fast. We've done a much better job in the last 2 years of scoring on opening possessions. We've done a better job there, so I think that helps. But then, as we're trying to kind of figure out who and what they are, so based on everything we've studied, are they staying true to what we game plan based on what we saw on film, or are they trying to break all their tendencies and how they're calling the game? So we're trying to find that out as quickly as we possibly can to adjust how we're calling the game and how we're trying to attack them in really all 3 phases. So I think we can do a better job of probably diagnosing those things a little bit faster. But we have played really well in second halves, and we played sporadic early on. But as we continue to play better and better competition, like we're getting with Kent State each week, we got to make sure that we're not starting out slow in the first quarter or second quarter and things like that. You can't do that. For us to beat the types of teams that we want to beat consistently, we got to play, at a pretty high level, not only every rep, but for all 4 quarters.
Awesome. When we have a kid like Ricky Slade who struggles, how do you balance getting the messages across that you need to about fumbling with realizing you don't want to kill his confidence as a young guy?
Yeah, I think it's what you just said. You just got to be aware of that. There's got to be a clear understanding and standard that's not acceptable because it's preventable. And I think that is critical, but also not taking it too far. I thought our coaches and our players handled it really well in the locker room, and he's going to have a great career here, and he's got a very bright future. But typically that's an issue with young backs is pass protection and hold on to the football because they're getting hit harder than they've ever gotten hit in their life, and they're getting bigger, stronger guys trying to rip the ball out more than they've ever had in their entire life. And I think the other thing is they're just better than everybody in high school. So when they going against guys that are as good or almost as good as them, and the margin of error is so small, all those things matter. So he'll learn from this, he'll grow from this, he'll be better from this experience because of how he's handled it and how our team handled it, and I think how our coaches handled it.
How fair of a barometer are the 2016 and 2017 seasons offensively in terms of what you're expecting out of this offense aesthetically, how it plays the game? Because I think there's maybe a perception, fair or not, that Ricky and Trace are still here, so suddenly everything's going to be the same. But I would say 2 games, not a lot of data, but maybe how this offense is playing is different than that. Are people measuring this against the wrong thing? How much are you expecting it to look like what it used to? How much are you expecting it to look like what it is?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think number one, I would say, obviously, when you stay in-house, for a number of reasons, because Ricky has earned the opportunity, and also because your quarterback's had a lot of success in that system, you don't stay in-house and then expect it to look different. So yes, we want it to look similar, but even from year one to go into this offense to year two, it changed. And then obviously, although we're staying in the same system, you got a different personality now calling the plays with different backgrounds and things like that. So we're going to be constantly evolving. It's no different than our program. Our core values and our core beliefs will not change, but you'll see aspects around that nucleus that evolve and grow and adapt and have to. In this game, if you're not growing and you're not adapting and you're not evolving, you're not going to last very long. So each week we're going to learn. Each year we're going to learn. And then based on our personnel, we'll also factor into it. You know, when you got a guy like Mike Gesicki, there's going to be aspects of your offense that are magnified with Mike's skill set that's going to be different than Fryermuth, for example, and so on and so forth. So our system will tweak a little bit based on our personnel, based on our staff, but the core nucleus of who we are and how we operate and how we do things will stay the same. I think a big part is you didn't really see 12 personnel a whole lot in the past, and you're seeing more of that right now. Why is that? Well, because I felt like we could be better in some of our short yardage and some of our low red zone stuff. Well, that's great, but if you don't have the personnel to do it, why are you going to put two tight ends on the field and take one of those guys off if your personnel doesn't demand that? So it's a combination of all those things. So yeah, I think we look probably how I expected us to look based on all the conversations we had all off season. You know, one of the things I thought Ricky's done a really nice job of is, not only, being involved in everything the last couple of years, but also once he did take over, he had a very clear picture in his mind and image of how he wanted to do it. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make as a head coach or as a coordinator, is you get into that role and then you try to be like the person that was there before you. Like, as you guys know, Billy's a really good friend of mine. We lived in the same neighborhood at the University of Maryland. We got a very similar background, but how Billy coaches and how Billy leads is very different. I can't come in and try to be Billy. And it's the same way with Ricky. Ricky's got a very different personality than Joe. And I want to surround myself with players and coaches that are very comfortable in their own skin and own who they are. And I think that's why you see guys like Marcus Allen, his personality, because that's who Marcus is, but also we embrace that. You see that with Ricky. You see that now with KJ Hamler. I see that with Mike Hazel. I see that with Chris Peterson, my staff. I don't want to be surrounded by all the same personalities and all the same opinions and a bunch of yes men. I want to be surrounded by a bunch of different people with different perspectives, diversity, diverse backgrounds, diverse perspective, diverse ideas, because that's the only way I'm going to make the best decisions for Penn State, is to hear all those things and see all those things and say, okay, great, this is great, I've got all the information now, here's the direction we're going. And that's GAs. We talked about this morning. Our GAs speak up more in our offense, defense, and staff meetings than any place I've ever been. But when they speak up, they're bringing value. They're not just talking to talk. So I think that's one of the challenges when you look at an organization is there a hierarchy? Yeah, there's got to be a hierarchy. But have you created a hierarchy that the GAs don't feel comfortable talking to the assistants, and the assistants don't feel comfortable talking to the coordinators, and the coordinators don't feel comfortable talking to the head coach? Have you really created an environment where guys will challenge me in front of the staff in a staff meeting? where guys will come into my office one-on-one and challenge me. And I think we've done a pretty good job of creating that environment, and I think in any organization that's critical.
One of the things, early on Saturday, it looked like your linebackers struggled to get off blocks. How big of a concern is that for you moving forward?
Well, it's interesting because I think it really depends. Obviously, we want to get off blocks, but I'll give you a perfect example. Mike Hull never got off blocks. Never. We moved him to Mike linebacker, and everybody says, why are you moving Mike linebacker? Why are you moving Mike Hull to Mike linebacker? It doesn't make sense. Well, Mike's greatest strength was not getting off blocks, not getting blocked in the first place. You know, and the whole deal, you take on a block, you take on half a man, you strike the guy, you knock him back, you peek over his shoulder, you disengage, you go make the play. That wasn't Mike. Mike was give you a little nod, slip, dip, reduce the surface area, go make the tackle. And he did it over and over and over again. So I think where you have to be careful is there's a lot of ways to play the positions. Tracy McSorley is our starting quarterback. The game is going to look very different with Tommy as our starting quarterback, with Sean Clifford, because they have different elements. The same thing at the linebacker position, same thing at every other position. You have to play the guy's strengths. So yeah, we got to do a better job of getting off the blocks, but we also got to do a better job of sometimes not even getting engaged in the first place. You know, but is Jan Johnson going to play a very different style of football than Mike Hull? No doubt about it. But that's where playing on an edge. If you run down the middle of some of these, 6'4", you run down the middle of Steven Gonzalez, you're doing exactly what he wants you to do if you're a linebacker. I think we saw the clip that Matt Lineberger posted of C.J. Holmes, finishing a block. C.J. Thorpe, he's going to be really mad at me too for saying that. C.J. Thorpe, in his block during the game. C.J., I apologize. Where's the camera? C.J., apologize. C.J. Thorpe, clearly C.J. Thorpe. You see, the last thing you want to do is run down the middle of C.J. Thorpe. So really, really physical guy, really, really talented guy. So my point of playing that linebacker position, it's going to look different. And Jan and Jesse and Ellis and those guys. Ellis is probably more like Mike Hull. He's a slip-up block guy compared to those other guys, but what you can't do is you can't go down the middle. You got to be on the edge, so now you can get off and you're beating half a man rather than trying to go through the whole body.